After watching my beloved Chicago Bears lose on a Hail Mary to the Washington Commanders, it's only out. I'm listening to Football Fight this week. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to PLD Project's Crown Jewels. I'm your host, PLD, and this is the podcast where I take you on a journey through the entirety of the Queen catalog. We are working our way through the Flash Gordon soundtrack. We're going song by song, track by track, version by version, as we decide which is the best version or titular crown jewel version of every song. We also give some notes, some quotes, some history when I have it. And of course, you can see if this song fits into my top 10 Queen-related tracks of all time. Now, I did say we are working our way through the Flash Gordon soundtrack, and we are. However, that's about to change. That's right, a special announcement for Crown Jewels. I am going to put a halt to the Flash Gordon soundtrack after this week. This will be our last Flash Gordon soundtrack episode for a while, because we had some big news in the Queen world. If you've been living under a rock and being a Queen fan, then you might not know, but most of you should know. On last Friday, Queen released Queen 1 Collector's Edition, a box set for the first album, and not just a remastering, but a remixing. I've mentioned it several times previously, the band was never really fully happy with the way the initial album sounded, especially Roger Taylor and his drums, and this was a chance to kind of give them a redo of sorts. So they have beefed up the drum sound, they have beefed up some of the guitar work. I have the box set. I have listened to it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think there's some great improvements. I think there's some that maybe should have been left alone. I'm not certain. But either way, we have the original album as it is. It's always great to get a new look at something, a new different version of something. I think that it was well worth the effort because we also got some other cool things. We got to get a Hangman, a official live version of that song that's been eluding us for years. It makes me think that there is no studio version, but I'm glad to have a really good sounding official live version where we only had a okay sounding bootleg audio recording before. We also got a great version of Doing All Right, an official live version of that, which we only had on bootleg as well. We also got two tracks, Jesus and I'm the Man, from the 1970 Imperial College days, the earliest recording of Queen that has ever been released. This is pre-John Deacon on bass. It featured Barry Mitchell on bass. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on here. I gotta say, a lot of cool stuff in this box set. But what does that mean for this podcast, and why am I stopping it? Well, it means there's a lot of more versions to go through. We already went through Queen. I picked my crown jewels, but now there are some challengers to the throne. So I'm going to go through, I think it's a 13-week regiment where we go through the entirety of the Queen album again. It won't be full episodes, so you don't have to worry about listening, like hearing things you've already listened to. I'm going to go back to the beginning and go through them bit by bit and just listen to the new versions. I might give myself a chance to listen to the crown jewel itself, or maybe some of the closer ones, so I can give it a proper rating overall. I'd also wanted to make sure I do this slowly because I want to make sure I give it time to settle in, not let anything new be overwhelmingly good or even overwhelmingly bad. I want to sit with it a little bit before I make my decisions. But I'll go through each track and we'll see what happens. Next week then it will be Keep Yourself Alive with a couple of different versions. We have the 2024 mix. We have the Daylane Lay Demo 2024 mix. They also remix the Daylane Lay demos in this. We have a early Trident version, and we have the instrumental version, backing track version. It's going to be really cool to see. Another 4 tracks to listen to, and we'll see what happens if it breaks through to my crown jewel, which is the 1975 retake of Keep Yourself Alive. But that is for next week, and starting then we'll go through it. Like I said, a big exciting tour there. And of course, after we're done with that, I will return and we will finish up Flash Gordon and move on to Roger Taylor's Fun in Space, the first full Queen solo album we're going to be doing on the Crown Jewels podcast. But that is all exciting things to come. And if you want to know more, hit that like, hit that subscribe. Let me know what you think about this stuff. I do have a Patreon at patreon.com/PLDprojects. Austin Goodell. I got Brandon Buckingham. Great crew there. We can try to get some early versions of stuff to you patrons as well. Maybe sometimes I try to do some other live streams as well, some exclusive live streams. It's all a lot of fun. If you can't get it, I can't support in that way, though. I totally understand. But, help me fight the algorithm. like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. All right, let's get into this week's football fight. I don't have a lot of notes or quotes in the history of this particular track. It is something of an irregularity in the soundtrack in that the whole band does play on it. We do feature Freddie on synth, Brian on guitar, John on bass, and Roger on drums. So a full band experience. Most of the soundtrack you're going to find are just two of them together, maybe even three of them at one point or another. This song was written by Freddie Mercury. It is one of those other short bursts, just like a lot of the soundtrack is. Short bursts of song. This one takes place in the court of Ming the Merciless, where Flash decides to fight back a little and actually uses his football skills to the point where it is pretty cheesy. I'm not going to lie. It's pretty cheesy and campy in the best way possible. You're either going to love this movie or you're going to hate it. I think if you give in to the campiness and you love that kind of camp thing, you will love it like I do. I grew up on it. Even before I liked Queen, I loved Flash Gordon. So now we do have two versions to listen to this time. We do have the album version, of course, and we do have an early version, No Synths. This was released in 2011 for Island, where they did the deluxe edition with the bonus EP. This is basically a demo version before they got to the synths. So it's definitely an interesting version for sure. So let's listen to these two versions. We'll come back. How do you do that? Well, you look into the show notes. You'll see a link to a Google Doc. On that Google Doc will be YouTube links, so you can go listen on your own. You'll pause me. You go listen, and you'll come back, and then we talk about it one by one, so you can keep it right in your ear when we're going to talk about it. So let's get right to it. Let's go listen to the album version. Pause me, and I'll see you in a minute. All right, welcome back. I love it. I love this. It's cheesy. It's fun. It got great driving synth with a great Roger backbeat. That 80s synth really takes the lead. That takes the lead of the melody. But it's John's bass that kind of holds down the fort for it. It kind of has that nice little thumping to it. Brian gets a few stabs, some power chords, some riffs along the way. We do get, unfortunately, the dialogue again. Sometimes the dialogue it's okay here, I guess. It's better than in some versions, or in some places in the soundtrack, rather. Because it is so cheesy when Ming starts talking to it as his number one there. And Flash starts doing football counting, and you get Dale as a cheerleader. It's got some great driving beat. It's exactly what it's kind of like, Batman from the 60s, the kind of Batman 60s action beat where they're beating up people with whatever they can get their hands on. You got Volta in the background, knocking them in the heads. Of course, you have the abrupt ending, the real abrupt ending with the dun-dun-dun kind of sound when Flash gets knocked out himself. It is what it is. It's exactly what the song needs. It's what the movie needed at that time. All right, let's move on to the other version, the early version, No Synths. Pause me, come back, we'll talk about it. Welcome back, and it is exactly as it is titled. It's promised to be the early version, No Synths, and it's exactly what it is. Obviously, it's a little bit earlier along the way, not the final version. And Freddie's doing it on piano rather than the synthesizer. Now, here's where it becomes interesting, because, quite frankly, I prefer the piano as a song. If we're just taking the song as a whole, I'd much rather hear the organic piano, that sound. But for the movie, I'd much rather hear the 80s synth. So I'm glad we have the alternative, though. It's very nice. Get no dialogue there. You do get a few Freddie countings. So he's trying to count the rhythm in there. I will say the bass and Brian's guitars aren't quite as prominent. I don't know if they quite have figured out what they want to do. They're there. Might just be lower in the mix. It's Freddie and more of a Freddie and Roger kind of like, let's get this idea of this song down before we fill it out a little bit. So there we go. Now, those are the only two versions we have. That was never played live, although, according to queenlive.ca, my friend Bob Wegner's site, who is the expert on all things Queen live during the Freddie era of Queen, it was attempted during a sound check in November of 1982 in Japan. However, it was never actually played. Unfortunately, I'd love to hear him make a stab at this live, but... All right, it's time to rank the Crown Jewel versions. Here we go. There's only two, so which one is it? Is it going to be the 80s synth version or the earlier version without the synths? Again, it's very difficult to say because, quite frankly, I like them both equally for different reasons. I think, though, if I had to go with my favorite, I'm leaning just enough towards the original version, the album version, because it is... the synths fit the movie, and if I'm listening to the Flash Gordon soundtrack, I want to listen to the movie. If I'm just listening for music here and there, then I would maybe take the other one, take the early version. But for this case and purposes, I'm going to go with the album version. I have no qualms if you want to slip that in your own Queen playlist, because I completely understand for sure. Um, as far as giving it a rating on a scale of 1 to 11, because we always, turn things up to 11 here on PLD Projects. Again, it's hard to rate these things. I think it might just have to give it a 5.5 like I've given the last couple, because it is just it's a short stab of music, short stab of like action oriented music. That's not really a song per se, so it's hard to judge it as being, I want to give it a 9 or 10. It's not a 9 or a 10. It's fun, but it's also, I can't give it like a 2 or a 3 because it does what it's supposed to do. So I figure, split the difference. 5.5 out of 11 right there. There you go. That's going to do it for this week, guys. Like I said, these Flash Gordon tracks are pretty easy to go through for the most part. We do have one or two that might take a little bit longer, but for the most part, these are going to be kind of quick episodes. However, as I said up top, we are pausing here, so might have a few more longer episodes as we basically do Queen 1 Revisited. We're going to start with Keep Yourself Alive next week. I can't wait for that. I'm going to listen to those songs a lot this week before I go through the episode, where I'll give them to a final comparison listen. So come back for that next week. Listen and hear me talk forever about Queen 1 and what I think it's good or not. I've heard people love it. I've heard people hate it. Differing opinions. Make up your own mind. It's all on YouTube Music, Spotify now anyway, so give it a shot. All right, guys, that'll do it for this week. Stay tuned next week, and I will see you then. Until then, may you not get hit in the head with a football or anything like a football and get knocked out. May your football fight be victorious. All right, bye.